That line has gone up all week against the hapless Cleveland Browns. But what will the Eagles look like coming out of a bye week? With all their players back, will they be in sync? Is the quarterback in harmony with the head coach? For those answers, we go to the man who covers the Eagles for ESPN.com. He's the great Tim McManus. He joins us on the Comcast Business Hotline. Hello, Timmy.
What's up, Mike? How you doing?
Good. All right, so, Tim, let's get to the business at hand here. First of all, the quarterback and the head coach had some really good conversations during the bye, apparently. That's what they said. He said they had long conversations, that they got the work done. They had a lot of good talk. And he's admired how the guys have worked during the bye week, especially for this game and especially the quarterback. What say you?
They're in harmony, Mike. That's the term that Jalen Hurts used.
Yes,
a lot of it felt intentional. I mean, if you go back to his comments after the loss against the Bucs, and he was asked about him and Nick working together to find a common message, and Hurts said, "We have our moments." It kind of left people feeling like, what's going on again, right? And this has been something that's been dating back now to the latter part of last season. So a lot of it felt intentional that now that Hurts comes back and he's like, we had a lot of great moments. So he actually uses that phrase. But, Sirianni did back it up today, and so that they did have long conversations, multiple conversations. And so I think that part's real, and that's ultimately productive. I mean, this is a pairing that has certainly had their moments where they haven't been on the same page. Last year, was certainly an example of that, and I think they've made efforts to try to fix that. And it, who knows if these conversations lead to anything, but the fact that they are working together and they are efforting to get on the same page and they are having these long conversations, I think you take that as a positive overall.
Yeah, that's great. I think it's wonderful. I think maybe some PR spin got in there, and they decided to put a better front on it. But, this is going to be an interesting game because the Eagles really should bury this team. The state the Browns are in, they came in, they're supposed to have a good defense. They really have not performed in any capacity. So what do you expect to see in this game? How will the Eagles attack this Browns team?
Yeah, well, I mean, the 9.5 points feels like a lot for a team. I understand what's going on with the Browns and how bad Deshaun Watson has looked and the whole thing, but the Eagles have not proven to be the team that stomps on inferior foes, really dating back to the slide last year and then through 4 weeks of a sample size this year. And everything's been tight or, they've been on the wrong end of a near blowout. So the positive news for them is that they're going to be at full bore, it looks like. So we were just on the practice field. Lane Johnson was there again, and A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. And it looks like Hurts is going to have his full complement of players on offense. And if you look at the opener against the Packers, they scored 34 points, and then that has dropped off dramatically in the 3 games. When A.J. Brown was not on the field, they've been averaging 17 points per game. So obviously his presence is going to be huge. You would expect them to, get up and rolling a little bit on offense. That's the blueprint. They've obviously had a heavy focus on trying to get off to a good start, considering they haven't scored a single point in the first quarter yet this year. And, so I'm sure they're going to be mindful of that, try to get it up and rolling, pin their ears back, and get after Deshaun Watson. That's the blueprint. Let's see if they can execute it.
So, Tim, one of the things that Jalen worked on this offseason we kept hearing was against the blitz, and that was something Kellen Moore was supposed to help him with. It looked that way through the first 3 games, and then Todd Bowles last week blitzed him 70% of the time and didn't have as much success. Now, Jim Schwartz, who's the defensive coordinator for the Browns, 3rd most blitz rate this year. So do you expect the Cleveland Browns to try to come after Jalen this weekend?
It's a good question because that's not how we think of Jim Schwartz. I mean, he was here for a number of years, and him and the blitz not exactly go hand in hand there, but he has changed his stripes a little bit this year, and he is bringing the heat more. And absolutely, I think that if there's ever a time for him to try to go after it that way, it's against Jalen Hurts, because it was a little curious. Like, Hurts was having success against the blitz through the first 3 games, but he wasn't getting a lot of zeros. There wasn't a whole lot of all-out blitzes, which has really sort of been a kryptonite for him. And so it was curious that other teams decided not to go that route. In Hurts' defense, he was operating with wide receivers that obviously he wasn't very comfortable with relative to the stars that he normally has. So that was probably part of it. But, yes, I would think that Schwartz would definitely bring a number of pressures to see if Hurts has, in fact, figured it out.
Let's look at the Browns. They have to run the football because they did it last week and had success a little bit. But the Eagles are also giving up 5.1 a clip on rushes. What do you expect that this run defense has buttoned down over the time they've had off?
I mean, they've implemented new drills, Mike, and they've thought it over and like, how can we get better at tackling? But I need to see it. I mean, 15 missed tackles against the Bucs. Like, that is just an enormous amount. Can't happen. And, I mean, ultimately we're going to have to figure out if this defense has the personnel to get it done. And I agree with you. I mean, this is for Cleveland, and Nick Chubb's been practicing in a limited capacity this week. I'm curious to see if he ends up getting on the field for the Browns. That could shift the dynamic a little bit. But absolutely, they're going to look and see that the Eagles have been very giving on the ground, allowing 5 yards per rush. Know that they would like to take some pressure off of Watson, who's been struggling very badly, and keep the ball out of an explosive offense's hands. So that's the recipe. There'll be some slight tweaks, I think, defensively, but Fangio's group is going to have to prove whether they can get it done or not.
Let me ask you this question, because this is something that's come up a lot from callers. Mike and I have talked about it. If the Eagles somehow lose this game, a game they're favored by almost double digits, how hot is Sirianni's seat?
Well, we know that the pressure in the city is just going to be like at the high, like about as high as it gets. This is a very important game for the Eagles. I mean, let's broaden it out to that for a second. They should steamroll this team. I think every expectation is people are just writing it in. Yeah, this is going to be an easy win, and then move on. If it goes the other way on them, because of the opponent that they're facing, because of what the expectations are, I think the city, obviously, especially coming off of the Phillies loss, is going to be in a very foul mood when it comes to their sports teams. The Eagles and Nick Sirianni in particular is going to feel it. Does that mean that Jeffrey Lurie, pulls a Woody Johnson and axes him after week 6? I don't think so. That's not normally how he operates. Lurie has only gotten rid of one coach in season, and that was Chip Kelly, and this right before the last game of the regular season. And Kelly didn't exactly make himself many friends in this building, so it was a different circumstance. So I don't know that it means that, Sirianni would be gone. But in terms of like a hot seat, yes, obviously things would get wildly ratcheted up from the fan base, and he'd be feeling it.
Here's where he's definitely going to be gone. If they lose this game, then they lose the Giants, and then the Bengals smash them. Then that's 3 in a row, 2 to bad teams, and 1 against a good team that they couldn't handle. That's where I think that they would, because then they play the Jaguars at home, and the new coach will have a home game. But they're not going to do that.
This is such a crucial stretch, though, Mike, to your point. Like, just think of the 2 different universes that the Eagles can be living in, depending on how this 4-game stretch goes. And it's all sub-500 teams. It's the Browns, and it's the Giants, and it's the Bengals, and it's the Jags. And you should go at least 3-1 there. And if they do that, now they're sitting like near the top of the NFC.
Yeah.
If they stumble, then the world, like the walls are crumbling. So, those are basically the 2 options in front of Sirianni in this group right now.
I got you. Of course, Tim McManus covering the Eagles.